Spacefarer. WTUFO is brought to you by you, the viewer or listener. Thank you so much for supporting the show and for watching and listening. If you want us to keep making these episodes, please go to patreon.com/WTUFO and support us for $1 per month. Alternatively, you can do this on YouTube. I think the minimum there is $2 a month, but if you feel like giving us more, you can absolutely do that on patreon.com/WTUFO or YouTube or Buzzsprout if you can figure that one out. So please help the show continue to exist by going to patreon.com/WTUFO and supporting us for $1 a month. Thank you very much. What the UFO? I'm here with Dr. Jörg Matthias Determann. Matthias, it's great to meet you. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you so much, Caleb, for having me. It's an honor.
The honor is all mine, I assure you. Dr. Matthias, or Dr. Determann, Matthias informally is a professor of history in the Department of Liberal Arts and Sciences at Virginia Commonwealth University in Qatar. And last year, he wrote, produced, edited a book I'm excited to talk to him about called Islam, Science Fiction and Extraterrestrial Life. So first, did I get your title right? And second, can you tell me a little bit about this book? Did you write it? Did you edit it? Did it come together as the product of a group? Was this all you?
Thank you so much. Yeah, you got everything right in terms of my title and my workplace here at the Virginia Commonwealth University in Qatar. I've worked on Islam and extraterrestrials for a number of years. I've produced a single authored book called Islam, Science Fiction and Extraterrestrial Life. And I've also produced an edited volume, a collected volume with essays by different contributors called Islamic Theology and Extraterrestrial Life. So two books about the same topic of Islam and aliens more broadly.
Okay, thank you. That's why I was confused. I apologize for that. And I want to flag immediately that people can pick up this book, Islam, Science Fiction and Extraterrestrial Life. This is publicly available. You can find it on Bloomsbury, probably Amazon. So if you enjoy this conversation, or even if you just find that intriguing, go pick up Matthias's book right now. I thought we could start, Dr. Determann, by just walking through a little bit of your career history, maybe your origin story. I'm so curious about your life in Europe and what brought you to Qatar, and anything you'd like to share about your bio and your academic record.
Thank you so much. So I had the great privilege and good fortune of growing up and living in different countries and in different parts of the world. I was born in Germany. I partly grew up in Austria. I studied in Malta and the United Kingdom. I did a postdoc in Germany again, and I've lived in Qatar for almost 12 years now. So I've been moving between different countries and also moving between different worlds. So between the Western world and the Muslim world. I've always been interested in strange places, faraway places, distant places, whether in time or in space. So I'm a historian who likes to delve into the past, obviously, and a famous historian once said that the past is like a foreign country, where sort of people who appear strange to us sort of did strange things that maybe nowadays we have a hard time understanding. I've also often been the other, sort of living in a different country, living as a foreigner. I've spent most of my life outside my native Germany. So I've had an interest in perhaps what is the ultimate other for humanity, and that would be aliens, that would be extraterrestrials. I've been a science fiction geek and fan and nerd since growing up. I've loved Star Trek, Star Wars, the X-Files, especially space-themed science fiction about aliens. And I'm very, very fortunate to have had a job here in Qatar that allows me to engage with that topic of extraterrestrial life in a deep manner in a serious manner, and in a manner that connects different fields. So connects science fiction, connects religion and theology. In your studio, there's this poster, "What Must We Believe?" And of course, Fred, the word believe itself, it's used famously in the X-Files for believing in UFOs, but belief also has a religious connotation too. So I've been very, very interested in exploring science as well as religion through the lens of alien life.
That's fascinating. So you have a few different degrees in this area, I understand. You have a history degree, you've got an Arabic studies degree, and you have a doctorate in history from the School of Oriental and African Studies in the University of London. Did I get all those things right?
That's right. That's perfect. Yeah. So my PhD, as you mentioned, was in the School of Oriental and African Studies within the University of London. So as the name Oriental and African Studies suggests, this is an institution that was founded to study the other, to study another civilization, to study the languages of Asia and Africa and the Middle East, and teach the languages, teach the cultures, teach the literatures, teach those worlds that nowadays have become closer together, but at times also seemed distant from England, distant from London. So I've always been sort of interested in bridging different worlds, bridging different cultures, whether it's between the East and West, or whether it's between Earth and other planets.
And so you say you're a sci-fi fan from way back. Same here. I wonder, was there a moment in the last few years where a switch kind of flipped for you from thinking, aren't these ideas kind of cool and interesting to explore? And, oh, might these ideas have an immediate physical implication for the world we live in today? Was there a moment recently where you started taking UFOs, UAP more seriously? Or has that been a long tradition in your life as an adult of thinking that there was really something to them and they were worth investigating?
Great question. So all of our lives have always been connected to the stars, to the sky, to the heavens. There is this very, very old pursuit, discipline, field of knowledge called astrology that looks at the effects that celestial body, things in the sky, might have on humans, on us. And while astrology as a scientific discipline has been criticized and discredited by many, we must also acknowledge that the stars do have a very profound effect on our planet, but not least our very own star, the sun, affects life and makes life even possible on our planet. So we have that connection with the stars, with the planet, and as a result, they also appear in perhaps all cultures. The stars play a role, the planets play a role. If your listeners are looking for a fun game, you can just see how many flags around the world in different countries, different continents actually feature stars on them. Whether it's the United States flag, the Australian flags, many flags of Muslim countries, and so on. So we have that connection between between us and the stars. And there's something universal about the stars, and there's also something universal about UFOs. So I could draw an image of a flying saucer, and it would be recognizable as an alien spaceship to almost whoever I show this to, wherever country I am. I could basically tell people about the basic idea of the contact with people from another world. And this this basic idea would be something that intrigues people, again, from any culture, any background. So I guess what makes UFOs, unidentified flying objects, UAP, unidentified aerospace phenomena, flying saucers, so interesting is that they have this universal appeal, that they found their way into every culture. And indeed, you find science fiction fans in almost every country.
And are you currently a professor of all kinds of history, or specifically Islamic history?
So my own research, it focuses on the history of science. So I'm looking at science within culture, within society, which is a field that also allows me to trace these connections to theology, to beliefs of various kinds. But within the broader field of the history of science, I'm specialized through my language training, in particular in the Arab world, in the Muslim world. So I speak Arabic, I read Arabic, I use it on a daily basis. I live in an Arab country. So that's where perhaps my biggest expertise or my most knowledge lies in. As a teacher, I do also teach sort of outside my area of research. Anybody who works in academia knows is that sometimes you just have to teach what the curriculum needs. So I also teach survey courses in European history. I teach more broadly about world history, but my core sort of interests are in the history of science and in the history of the Muslim world.
Interesting. So that kind of explains a little bit about why you chose Islam as the focal point for your science fiction and extraterrestrial. The book is called Islam, Science Fiction and Extraterrestrial Life. So it seems like you took this as your entryway. And I'd love to ask you a couple questions about that, if that appeals. Most obviously, I'm curious about potential stories in the Quran and the Hadith about creatures or events that might in some way apply themselves to being considered as potentially extraterrestrial. I would imagine this is an area that you've thought a lot about. As you well know, all these ancient religions have little stories or little moments or little creatures or characters who seem potentially resonant with the ideas that surround UFOs, UAP, and other kinds of extraterrestrial technology and beings, or, theoretically extraterrestrial anyway. So I'd love to ask you about what, if any, moments in the Quran jump out to you as seeming potentially extraterrestrial as a start. And I have to ask your forgiveness that I'm relatively ignorant of this subject. I don't know very much about Islam. I don't know very much about religion in general, to be honest. And so I might ask you some pretty simple questions. Please bear with me on that.
Not at all. The Quran has, at one of its cores, a central idea of science fiction and a central idea also of ufology, of the study of UFOs, and that is the idea of the plurality of worlds, the idea that there's more than one world.
I heard you say in another interview that Quran actually doesn't use the singular word world to refer to the world ever. Is it all plural worlds throughout the Quran?
Absolutely. It's always worlds in the plural. And God is repeatedly at the beginning and throughout the text described as the Lord of the worlds, the Lord of the worlds in the plural, as the creator of the worlds, again, in the plural. And that the worlds themselves are evidence for the glory of God, that God is indeed all-powerful, that God can create whatever he wants to create. So there are these old ideas, for instance, of there being 7 heavens and 7 earths, and there being creatures distributed throughout the heavens.
A quick side note about that. I ran into an idea about that in Hindi mythology recently. That's like they had names for each of the 7 layers of reality, planes of existence, aspects of the spirit realm or whatever. And I was really struck that 7 heavens popped up in the Quran as well. So I'm curious about that area in particular. Maybe we want to put it to the side and we can double click on it later. But I'm fascinated by the coincidence of that, and I'm wondering if one of those faiths kind of predated the other, and this idea has a deep stem in human thought, or if it's emerged in multiple places.
Yeah, great question as well. So Islam itself emerged at the crossroads of different civilizations. Islam emerged in the Near East, but just like Judaism and Islam, of course. And this was an especially fertile region for the transfer and development of ideas, including religious ideas. So the Middle East is literally in the middle. It's in the center of the world. It is between Asia, between Europe, and between Africa. So it's in between, for instance, the civilization of the Greeks and the Romans, in between the civilizations of India, of China, and of course the Middle East had its own great civilizations too, those of Egypt and Mesopotamia in particular. So a lot of these civilization has had a lot of knowledge about the stars. This was their flourishing was during a time when there was almost no light pollution, unlike now. So if nowadays our listeners live in big cities, they would find it very, very hard to make out a lot of stars. When a lot of these great religions emerged, you had many more stars visible, and these civilizations all had names for these stars and objects in the heavens, names that are often thousands of years old, that go back to ancient Mesopotamian, Babylonian times, for instance. So there are a lot of connections here between different civilizations and millennia old lore about the stars and the planet. Mentioned the 7 heavens, the 7 earths. There is like something holy, something magical about that particular number. The number 7. You mentioned that there are Indian names for the different layers of heavens. There are also like various Arabic descriptions. The highest heaven is usually described as God's throne. However, Muslim sources in general leave it quite open what God's throne, what that highest heaven might look like. So unlike churches, for instance, in most mosques, you will not find depictions of God. You will not find depictions of people even. And even though the Quran talks about God's throne, God's hand, there isn't really a specific image, physical image of God that we should have. So God's throne is not necessarily a person sitting on a chair. The idea here of a throne could be much, much more abstract. I mentioned earlier creatures in the heavens. A Muslim would generally answer the question, are we alone, with no, that there are other intelligent life forms out there. You could describe God himself as an extraterrestrial intelligence. You could describe the angels that exist in the Christian tradition, again, as a form of intelligent life. Angels are sometimes seen as sort of instruments of God, but they're also sometimes described as having their own will. But there's the idea of Satan as a fallen angel, so as somebody who went against God. So in Islam, for instance, Satan refused to bow in front of Adam as God's creation. So he then went against God's will, which also suggests a certain sentience or intelligence. But beyond himself and beyond the angels, the Islamic culture also has another type of being called the jinn, known, for instance, through the genie of Disney's Aladdin, for instance, as a very powerful type of creature that is of a different nature than us.
And then angels, right? I've heard you say the angels in
exactly.
canon here are formed from light, and the jinn are formed from fire.
Exactly, that's right. So they are made of a different substance, different type of matter. So they have powers, they have knowledge that humans don't have, but they're also a form of God's creation, a separate creation from either angels or from humans. And there's something extraterrestrial about the jinn as well, and that they can come in and move out of our world, that they can make themselves visible as well as invisible. They are commonly understood of having their own world. There's the world of the humans, and then there's the world of the jinn. But the jinn can sort of come in and out of our world as well. And some modern Muslim writers have noted parallels, for instance, between the jinn and various UFO contactee stories. So, for instance, abductions. There's a lot of Islamic literature about people being abducted by jinn, about people even engaging in sexual relations with jinn. And of course, in UFO lore, there are lots of stories as well about abductions, about sexual experiments done by aliens on humans. The UAP are obviously intrinsically mysterious phenomena, just like the jinn too. So they both evade a lot of sort of scientific instruments, theories, ideas that we commonly have. So jinn and UFO has been a very, very productive area for a lot of Islamic thinkers in modern and contemporary times.
That's fascinating. Are there still in the Muslim world stories about like contemporary engagements with jinn? Is that something that pops up? If you're interested in the subject, would you maybe be likely to see stories about somebody seeing something in a sandstorm or being carried away or feeling like there was a presence? Like, is this a living contemporary phenomenon and idea?
Absolutely. So for instance, when I lived in Saudi Arabia before living in Qatar, I worked there and I also researched my PhD. I went with Saudi young men to the desert, and we were outside of Riyadh, outside of the Saudi capital. We were sitting at a fireplace, and my Saudi friends told me about sort of their own encounters with jinn, sort of in the desert. So where they would have, where they would be sitting around a fireplace on a sand dune, and then they would hear strange noise, or they would see another type of fireplace. But when upon investigation, they would find no humans there as well. But there are lots of jinn stories still being told. Just like in other parts of the world, people would still tell contemporary ghost stories as well.
Are fairy stories are popular in Celtic communities still?
Absolutely. And and maybe maybe as a small difference to fairy stories in Celtic cultures, but the jinn are very, very prominent in the Quran too. So the holy text of Muslims has a whole chapter entitled the jinn. And the Quran itself is understood to be the word of God. So if the word of God itself has an entire chapter named the jinn, then most Muslims would agree that the jinn are not just a type of ghost that you tell stories about, but it's also something that you have to believe in if you believe in the Quran.
It's a mainstream conviction.
Absolutely.
That's a really important point.
I should also maybe add here that the conventional Arabic word for crazy or insane is majnoon, and majnoon actually comes from jinn. So you have the j and then two n's, majnoon. So crazy or insane, the Arabic word majnoon literally means possessed by a jinn.
Interesting. Made me think about the word magic also. Does that have an Arabic root? Do you know?
Good question. I'm not sure, but they are the magi as priests from the east that might be associated with Zoroastrianism, a pre-Islamic Iranian religion. So maybe there's an Eastern etymological connection between magic and magi.
Probably shouldn't have floated that as something I could just Google, but I'm curious. While we're still in the territory of otherworldly beings, is there more to? Are there more creatures in the Quran than we've got angels and jinn so far, and God, as you mentioned? Does the Quran have a demonic aspect? Are there any sort of trickster creatures like fairies? Are there ghosts? Are there other kinds of beings in the picture here?
Yes, so in the Islamic imagination, just like in the Western Christian imagination, there are definitely strange creatures at the edge of the world. So with my students, we discussed recently old early modern European maps of the world were often at the edge of those worlds. You would have like sea monsters, sort of creatures of the imagination, or creatures from stories that sailors told. It's a very, very old idea that at the edge of the world, sort of you're moving away from civilized humans, and sort of you meet barbarians and you meet ever stranger beings. The Greeks and Romans had those ideas that, again, sort of outside what they considered civilized, there were strange peoples and cultures. For instance, the culture of the Amazons, the Amazonian warrior women, sort of again at the edge of the world. Maybe there's something in human nature that we often sort of imagine, sort of the strangest, wildest things at the edge of our world or just outside of our world. So for instance, in Islamic scripture, as well as more broadly Islamic beliefs, there are the Gog and Magog. In Arabic, Juj and Majuj as monsters who were kept out of the world. The Quran has a figure called Dhul Qarnayn, literally the person, the one with the two horns, Dhul Qarnayn, the one with the two horns, a legendary hero who built a wall, built a kind of dam at the edge of the world, which was imagined to be somewhere in Central Asia, to keep those Juj and Majuj monsters out of this world. lots of historians have tried to sort of figure out whether there's some real basis for the story. So Dhul Qarnayn is often associated with Alexander the Great as a legendary hero who went to the edge of the world, went all the way from Greece to Central Asia, and sort of, again, encountered a variety of people there. Some of my students also wonder whether there might be Islamic ideas about the Great Wall of China as sort of a wall that was built to keep out the barbarians, keep them out from civilization. But anyway, you have this idea of the Juj and Majuj, the Gog and Magog, monstrous beings behind a wall, behind a dam, at the edge, at the end of the known world. And in Islamic eschatology, so in the Islamic ideas about the end times, these Juj and Majuj, they would come back, just like the Antichrist. In Arabic, Al-Masih ad-Dajjal would appear at the end of time, and before the world would come to an end, before what you would have in Islamic ideas, the Yawm al-Qiyamah, the day of resurrection. You would basically have the Juj and Majuj monsters invading all of the known world. Maybe that's another idea that also could be connected to extraterrestrials as strange beings sort of just outside of our world that could also invade our world at any time.
That's a big yes to are there more creatures in the Quran? Wow. Fascinating. What about UFOs or UAP? Is there anything in the Quran that seems like it could be a craft or a flying object? I've heard people point to some parts of the Bible and say like Ezekiel's wheel within a wheel, or like spinning eyes sound maybe like a craft. Some of the like original descriptions of angels sound like they could potentially be referring to some sort of thing that might be mistaken for a flying saucer, or the other way around. Is there anything that has popped off the page at you as sounding like potentially a technological object?
Great question as well.
Thank you.
So both the angels as well as the jinn could be sort of maybe understood, misunderstood as UFOs. So the angels are believed to be beings made of light, and in a lot of modern depictions of angels from the Islamic world, the angels actually just appear as lights. So when you would have modern Muslims trying to draw an angel, they would not necessarily draw, let's say, a half-naked, childlike figure with wings, but they would just draw a ball of light. Similarly with the jinn, they are commonly understood to be creatures made of fire. Again, they can perhaps easily be connected and have been connected by Islamic scholars to a flying saucer, to a UFO, a light in the sky that's fast moving, a light in the sky that might also be able to burn humans, right? So if you have humans having burn marks on their skin, and there are many stories about those, these burn marks could be sort of evidence for the jinn, but burn marks could also be evidence of contact with a spacecraft capable of great heat and fire and light.
So the subtitle of your book is The Culture of Astrobiology in the Muslim World. I'd love to ask how you think about the idea of extraterrestrial life intersecting with the Muslim world. Do you think more acceptance or less acceptance than some of the like European or American visions and traditions? And will it be more or less challenging for Islam to incorporate extraterrestrial ideas than, say, like Christian countries or cultures? What is the state currently of Islamic thinking about extraterrestrials and maybe even more specifically UAP?
Thank you. Islam, Muslims in general accept the idea of a plurality of worlds, of there being many worlds, but they see it as evidence for the glory of God, of God's power. Also, the idea that there would be many different intelligent creatures, sentient creatures, again, could be seen as, again, evidence, yes, that God is indeed all powerful, that he can create whatever he wants to create. Islam also does not have the problem of God becoming incarnate on a certain planet at a certain time. It's essential to Christianity is, of course, the idea that God became flesh, that God became man, and that he died for the salvations of humans, that he died in order to wipe away the sins of humans, especially that the original sin since our removal from paradise. Islam does not have that idea of God becoming incarnate in a human, of sort of God becoming flesh in a human. So Muslims are very, very comfortable with God as an all-powerful being far away and being distant, being on his throne, again, as something that is not further sort of depicted in any way, somewhere at the edge of our cosmos, and creating everything, and just creating worlds upon worlds and creatures upon creatures, but with no end. And there is no need to think about, oh, God choosing one particular planet to appear as a figure of the sun, and to live a life as Jesus Christ, and to die on the cross. In Islam, Jesus Christ is not God. He's not God's son, and he's just a prophet. He's a prophet in a whole line of prophet, together, starting with Adam, through Abraham, through Solomon and David and Noah and many others, and sort of in Islamic mainstream idea, of course, the last of those prophets being Muhammad. But Muslims wouldn't have a problem per se in there being many prophets, maybe across the universe, that God could have sent messages, heavenly messages, could have sent holy books around our galaxy, around all galaxies of the universe. Islam, though, does sort of have a certain hierarchy of beings. So in general, human beings appear at or sort of near the very top of like the hierarchy of creation. But now, if we find an alien civilization that seems to be much more advanced than ours, if we find an alien civilization that seems to be much more favored by God than we are, right? A species that is much more powerful, much more peaceful, much more collaborative, much more advanced, much much better than we are, then this would create challenges indeed, sort of that about sort of how Muslims would view humans and the place of humans in the cosmos. I should add here, though, that Islam itself, just like Christianity also, and many of the most successful world religions, is very, very flexible. So Muslims have adapted their beliefs, their practices, to all corners of our planet, and even to outer space. So Muslims have prayed, for instance, in outer space. Muslims have thought about what Ramadan could look like for space travelers, and so on. So even if, yes, finding other species who seem to be more favored by God might be a challenge, like Muslims and Islam as a religion would be flexible and adaptive enough to overcome that challenge, I would predict.
Interesting. So structurally, it sounds like Islam might be pretty well set up. I like your point that religions are a little more flexible than people tend to imagine. I personally tend to feel like they are going to accommodate information about this fairly well. If we do get more information about the nature of reality, I would imagine that might be a net win for religious institutions, because it might sort of expand the aperture of what people are willing to accept as reality, and that might bring them to places of spiritual pursuit. But I'm curious about what you make of the cultural sort of openness to the idea that UFOs might be real. And this is maybe not a fair question to ask you, because you live in your particular culture, your college, your area of the city. So it's hard to compare that to anywhere else in the world. But I wonder just what kind of openness, receptivity are you seeing in those around you to the idea that UFOs might actually potentially be real non-human intelligence? And especially, I guess, within the academic world, or just answer that however you feel equipped to answer it. What's the openness to the idea that UFOs might be NHI around you?
I think there is a lot of openness. There is a lot of openness towards various ideas, some of them more conspiratorial than others. So Muslims, people in the Arab world, people in the Middle East, have often seen unidentified objects in the sky. For instance, the United States has, over many years, for instance, now sent drones to various parts of the Muslim world in sort of an unidentified manner, so not necessarily telling people when these drones would be sent or where they're going. So the drones have been sent on missions to Afghanistan, over Pakistan. Drones are in heavy use over Yemen at the moment, where the United States has been bombing parts of Yemen. So many Muslims have seen objects in the sky hovering above them, technological objects as well, sort of sometimes bringing destruction and death to them. At other times, just scouting, sort of being on reconnaissance missions. Again, sort of the people who see these drones, who see these objects in the sky, they might have their own theories about why they are there. Are these drones there to sort of scout for a terrorist? Are they there to sort of prepare a bombing mission of some kind? Some Muslims would have, justifiably or not, ideas about maybe conspiracies between powerful countries against them. But some Muslims would also probably have the theory that some of those lights, some of those objects, some of those flying things in the air might not necessarily be of human origins either, right? So it could be an American drone, but it could also be an object of a very different kind. And of course, a lot of drones, right? Sometimes you would see them over cities, but you would also often see these drones over rural areas where people might not necessarily have the level of education. So, for instance, in Afghanistan, under the Taliban, women were excluded from a lot of formal education. So if an Afghan woman over her village sees something that could be a drone, maybe she has her own ideas, sort of based on maybe the limited formal education that she has, also about what those objects might be.
And what about within the academic community, your research fellows, your teaching peers? Is there some increasing openness to the idea that UFOs might be real examples of non-human presence? I gather that this is slowly softening this world, but there has been a historic, pretty fierce resistance to this idea. And we've got more information now. We've got like a pretty steady drumbeat of intelligence reports and hearings before Congress in the United States. Is this kind of softening the academic environment at all? Is it opening people up to the idea that there might genuinely be a there, or are people still kind of not very interested in this subject?
So there is perhaps a certain skepticism, a certain resistance, like you said, but there's also just a lot of fascination with all the secrets that our cosmos might hold. So Muslims, Arabs, just like people everywhere else, they are interested and fascinated by the universe, by the stars, by space, the planets, and all the secrets that they might hold. So right now, for instance, there is a lot of excitement about potential signatures of life on exoplanets. And Muslims are just as enthusiastic in reading these kinds of reports, reading these kinds of studies, as people of other religions and people everywhere and anywhere, really. And we might sort of never really know what's exactly going on inside the atmosphere of an exoplanet until we actually go there. So until that point, we will probably have a lot of speculation, a lot of theorizing, and many Muslims are very, very comfortable with that speculation, with that theorizing. There's an Arabic saying that is very often used that means God knows best. Allahu A'lam, God knows best. So Muslims are, very, very comfortable with the idea that there are mysteries out there, mysteries of life in the universe, mysteries of life on other planets, but also unexplained sort of objects, phenomena, lights in the sky that have their mysteries, and mysteries that only God knows fully.
I'd love to take this in a more personal direction and maybe ask you a bit of a two-sided question here. One, as somebody who has researched faith so deeply and taught so much about historic religious and cultural traditions, what role does faith play in your life, if any? Has religion been a part of your intellectual tradition and your own personal thinking? Or is it something you consider more academically? And then related to that, you're interested in extraterrestrials and in UAP in the abstract. Are you interested in a literal sense, or how open are you to these ideas that things that people have been seeing in the last 100 or few thousand years might genuinely be extraterrestrial? So that's two pretty different questions, but they're in kind of the same area of the playing field. So I thought maybe we could take them together or sequence.
Thank you. For me, religion is very connected to gratitude. So if I think about what am I grateful for and sort of who am I grateful to in my life, obviously I'm very grateful to the people that I guess we're all grateful for, right? We're grateful to our families. We're grateful to the people around us, the people who sort of make our life possible. But sort of on a deeper and more abstract level, I'm also deeply grateful to God for creating this world with all its mysteries. And I am here on the side of many Muslims as well, that we will probably never be able to unlock all the mysteries of the universe. We will never be able to unlock all the mystery of the exoplanets unless we are able to actually go there, which might never be possible, certainly not in my lifetime. And then there are many objects, important objects in the cosmos that we might never be able to get to anywhere. Most notably, of course, black holes. So black holes that are literally central to galaxies and therefore central to all of life that might exist in a galaxy. A lot of physicists would tell us that we would never be able to sort of penetrate a black hole and come out of there and tell the stories about it. So yeah, from exoplanets to black holes, the universe is full of mysteries, full of unexplained phenomena, full of things that we might not fully understand the physics or the chemistry, etc., of either. So the event horizon of a black hole, for instance, is literally the edge of what we know in terms of physics. What's actually happening inside a black hole, just like what was happening at the very, very, very beginning of the Big Bang, might be something that we might never be able to grasp. So back to like the topic of UAPs and UFOs and sort of strange lights and objects and flying things in the sky, stories that people have told around the world for years and decades and centuries. We might never be able to fully understand the physics and the natural laws of everything that's involved, and as a result, I'm sort of very open to be surprised by nature and surprised by physics and surprised by God about what kind of secrets and mysteries our wonderful cosmos might hold for us.
That was a beautiful answer. I love the focus on mystery, and I love your state of happy wonder with that. It leads me to ask what kind of questions you are interested in pursuing. Like, what kind of questions feel beautiful to you to ask, whether or not you have a meaningful answer to them? I'm not sure this is a great question myself, but as somebody who researches things and poses teaching conundra for your students and asks people to engage intellectually in curious ways, I wonder what questions about the nature of reality excite you, whether or not you feel we might ever get an answer.
What excites me is the question of communication and whether communication with the other is possible. So would we be able to decode alien communication? Would we be able to send them messages that they would understand? Would they be able to send us messages that we would understand? So we humans are able to communicate with other beings to a certain extent. Everybody who has a pet knows we can communicate with a dog and with a cat as well. At the same time, we have a lot of other intelligent and sentient beings on our planet that we have struggled to make sense of. We have struggled to truly understand whale sounds, for instance, or whale songs, or the language of dolphins, even though we've studied these creatures for years and years. And of course, we have communication difficulties even with our fellow humans, even within families. So I have misunderstandings with my wife or with my daughter, even though I've spent years and years with them. So I'm fascinated with the question: can we successfully communicate with extraterrestrial others? Can we reach a mutual understanding? Can we ever decode their messages fully, or will we sort of just keep interpreting as we've been doing with the celestial, the heavenly messages that we do have, the heavenly books, right? People have been trying to decode the Bible and the Torah and the Quran for centuries and for millennia as well. So if the aliens send us some kind of communication, would we sort of be able to make sense of it? Would we be trying to decode and interpret it forever? Will we be able to communicate with them like we communicate with our pets, or will we still be trying to understand them just like we are only at the very beginning of understanding whale songs?
Yeah, that's a good question. How do you feel about proactive communication, like messaging extraterrestrial intelligence? Should we send some radio waves to these exoplanets that look like they might have life? And do you think that's something that we need to agree on as a species before we start doing it? Or do you support the individual science projects that have pursued that avenue?
Thank you. While I'm not sure whether we can successfully communicate with the other, with an alien civilization, I'm also convinced that we always communicate, even if we choose not to communicate. So once we've established some kind of contract, we are sending them something, if only electromagnetic radiation. So we're sending them the light that is reflected of Earth that's coming from our star, or they see the city lights that we produce, or they will just be able to record our television and radio broadcasts and other kind of radio waves. So there cannot be sort of complete silence from us anyway. So we'll always be transmitting something. The question is, how purposeful should we be in sort of trying to shape what we transmit? I would definitely say that if we will not have complete radio silence from our planet anyway, because we produce electromagnetic waves all the time anyway, we may as well try to sort of shape these electromagnetic waves into maybe some kind of pattern that intelligent others are able to figure out and decode.
Bringing that closer to Earth, there are some historic examples of UAP responding to hailing signals of some kind. There aren't a ton of them, but there are maybe like 12 or 13 examples of times that say like a fighter jet in the 50s sent a friend or foe signal to a UFO and they got something back. Maybe you're familiar with these incidents. That is a kind of communication, or it could be. And then more recently, I don't know if you've been tracking the Skywatcher team, but in the last month or two, they've said that they're using a signal to try to summon some of these craft or invite them or, call them in some way. And they've been using both like a human psionic signal and what they say is some kind of machine signal to send out a frequency and get a response. And so I wonder, do you have a similar feeling about the project of messaging toward technological or potentially technological phenomena around Earth?
Why not? I think at the very least, sort of, even if we don't want to signal very much, we would at the very least want to signal that we're not a threat, right? It's just like, let's say we meet an animal in the wild, right? So we can just hide, sort of maybe hope that the wild animal would not notice us. But if we cannot hide, and if they would see us anyway, if we signal something, we at the very least want to signal that we're not a threat to them. So that would be my own sort of, if we can't hide from the UFOs, from alien spacecraft, if they watch us anyway, if they notice us anyway, at least we want to sort of give them the message that they don't need to be afraid of us, that we're not there to harm them.
Really good point. And I think that leads to another natural, interesting area of inquiry, which is if in the next few years we get some better science that suggests that some of these UAP really are non-human, really are technological, and therefore intelligent in some way, what generally do you think we should do as a species to respond to that information?
Just as a scientist, maybe try to find out as much as we can. So if we see and find alien spacecraft, be able to track where they're coming from. Are they coming from somewhere in our solar system? Are they coming from another planetary system? Is maybe there something that we can learn about interstellar travel from them? That's a huge challenge, right, for us. How do we get from our solar system to the next planetary system? And the physics that we have doesn't make it easy for us to travel to Alpha Centauri or another star system. So if we could watch and understand how sort of interstellar navigation might work, I think we as humanity could benefit a lot.
That's a really good point. I wonder, along those lines, have you heard anything in Doha about reverse engineering projects that aren't in America? It's a pretty big deal in the last few years within the United States that there are these whistleblower claims, which turn out to be pretty old. Like there's Philip Corso in the 1990s saying we've been reverse engineering things for a long time. But Dave Grush in 2023 was probably the most serious, credible whistleblower. And then there's a movie coming out, Age of Disclosure, in which some serious military folks say we've been reverse engineering things. Have you heard from your position in the world about similar reverse engineering projects under other countries or other militaries?
I haven't heard much, and I would also just see the challenges in sort of just any kind of engineering, including reverse engineering. If you think about America has been the only country, as far as we know, that has sent human beings even just to the moon. So no other country has been able to send human beings to the lunar surface. And even the United States hasn't done so in many decades, hasn't done so since the 1970s. So it has been very, very hard for other countries to just copy the Apollo space program and sort of develop their own moon rockets that could land a Chinese astronaut or an Indian astronaut to the lunar surface. Even though that technology is decades old, and even though the computers that were used in the Apollo program, nowadays would probably have the same, have maybe less capability than a lot of smartphones nowadays. And even the United States that sort of that achieved that feat of human moon landings isn't able to sort of just do it again very, very easily. So the United States now has this Artemis program, but if it was that easy and say, okay, we knew how to do it, we knew how to build a rocket that goes to the moon, but we can just do it in 3 months, send a rocket, land a new person in the moon. But in fact, there's actually so much that we've forgotten about how to do it, that even if we wanted to send another human to the moon in 3 months, we couldn't do it, even though we still have the command modules in our air and space museums, even though we still have people from the time living who can tell the stories. And so it is really hard even to engineer or to reverse engineer actual human technology from the 1960s and 1970s. So yeah, I
also
would be
just
sort of
a
very
side note.
skeptical.
Okay, yeah, I understand that skepticism. Side note, I just wanted to mention the percent of GDP that America spent on its moon landing program is really high. I don't have the numbers off the top of my head, but if you look back at like how much NASA spent during that phase, it's just insane. I mean, it would be trillions and trillions of dollars today. So we humanity could probably do this again, but we would have to spend way more money than we are currently comfortable spending in space. I think that's a really important point about reverse engineering. And also, maybe, is there a hint of a logic point there about how we haven't been back, which implies that we don't have any kind of super technology that maybe could have gotten us there? Or maybe you're just saying, reverse engineering our own stuff is hard. Reverse engineering their stuff may be borderline impossible.
Yeah, so I think if we had technology that would easily get us to the moon, then we would see a lot more flags on the moon, right? Then the American flag wouldn't be the only flag that's on the moon. We would see Chinese flags and Indian flags and Russian flags and European flags and so on. And if we could get to the moon relatively easily, with all our sort of computing power that we now have, and that obviously is far beyond the computing power of the 1960s. If we could, with the technology that we do have, get to the moon very, very easily, we could have probably also landed humans on asteroids by now, and could have landed humans on Mars by now. And
as far as we know, we haven't done that.
And as far as we know, we haven't done that. And I'm convinced that if we had done so, we would have known about it. For instance, a lot of like astronomers, space scientists, but they actually find it very, very hard to keep secrets. If you have an astronomer who sort of discovers a signature of life on another planet, that news gets out pretty quickly. Either the scientists would try to publish it as fast as possible, or that knowledge would somehow get leaked. So again, sort of, if there were sort of fantastic achievements like a human being landing on an asteroid, human beings landing on Mars, or indeed, if we have sort of proof of an actual sort of alien spaceship, or the capture of an alien spaceship, I think somehow that news would have been published or leaked.
Interesting. I'm not sure that I agree, but I find this to be one of the more interesting and challenging areas of the space, because I do agree that the scientific community would not intuitively want to keep something like that secret, and I don't think they would be good at it, to your point. But the military and intelligence communities are different, and I think they are probably capable of keeping some secrets that maybe go very, very deep. And I wanted to ask you about your personal feeling. If we do find out, this is another hypothetical, but if we do find out that some organ of the military or intelligence community had scientifically revelatory information 80 years ago about the nature of reality and somehow prevented that information from getting to the broader academic scientific community, would you consider that bad? Would you consider that upsetting? Would you be angry? Would you be hurt by that? Or would you accept it as just the price of doing business for a military organization?
That's a good point. I haven't thought about that particular question. The whole thing about military secrecy, I guess, if we find out sort of military secrets, this might actually be the best time in the United States history, at least. So nowadays, obviously, it is possible for random journalists to be invited to a Signal chat group with the Secretary of Defense and sort of other national security officials.
Yeah, maybe he'll tweet it to
discussing bombings of Yemen. So indeed, it might very well possible that if we find out that aliens really exist, that UFOs have visited our planet, it is possible that we find out because somebody gets added to the wrong chat group and the knowledge comes out that way.
Hey, however it comes out, I'm for it.
Exactly. Let's say, would I be deeply upset if somebody like the National Security Advisor of the United States and or the Secretary of Defense of the United States would keep those secrets? They would sort of never invite anybody to the wrong Signal group and sort of share the knowledge that way. Would I be upset? Probably not intrinsically. Maybe I would just assume, well, that's just these people doing their job. Just like I'm in my job as a professor, I'm not allowed to share certain details about students. Since I'm not allowed to share students' grades without their permission. So yeah, probably the National Security Advisor of the United States and the Defense Secretary, probably they have their own guidelines of what they are allowed to share or not to share. Whether they follow those guidelines or not is another thing.
All right, taking this in a slightly different direction, but staying one more time in the hypothetical space, if we find out that some UAP are NHI, non-human intelligence, what sort of cultural project would that invite us to undertake in terms of just adapting to this information as a human species and as the various cultures around the world? What kind of work, what do you envision us potentially having to do to process this idea and to get comfortable with it or respond to it culturally? Yeah,
I think as cultures, we would just have to engage probably in a lot of interpretation. So just like we are still trying to decode and interpret works of human creation, works of human creativity, and also like religious texts, scriptures that we know very well. So just like we still have people trying to analyze the Bible and trying to analyze what the Bible actually means. Just like there's still people trying to analyze and write dissertations about the works of Shakespeare. Even centuries later, after already a lot of ink has been spilled on those topics. We would probably just engage in a multidisciplinary effort to understand what this UFO, what this object, what this spacecraft might mean. So it's multidisciplinary because engineers might want to look at the engines of the spacecraft. Linguists might look at any type of writing that might be on the surface of that object or on the inside of that object. Humanities specialists, so art historians, they might look at the aesthetic of the object. They might look at, is there any type of art or design in that object? So we would probably have lots and lots of people looking at the technical aspects, looking at the design aspects, the cultural aspects together. On a personal level, I would love to sort of be involved in such a project where I could talk to engineers and physicists and linguists and art historians, where we're all trying to find out something new about that very new object.
Well, let's return to your intellectual pursuits as we move toward a landing here. I'd love, because I haven't had a chance, I'm sorry, I haven't read Islam, Science Fiction and Extraterrestrial Life. I would love to read this book. So I wonder, because I haven't read it, I don't have deep cut questions for you. And I wonder what areas of your own intellectual exploration I might have missed in my line of questioning. Is there some territory that you covered in this book, or that you've been actively thinking about, that you think should be a part of this conversation that I haven't brought up?
So just like I mentioned right now, that if we find an alien spacecraft, we would want many, many people with different kinds of expertise having a go at that object. This has already been the reality with the objects of the imagination that do exist in our culture. So extraterrestrial life, aliens, UFOs is something that a lot of people from different areas of human activity and human creativity have had a go at, including in the Muslim world. So we have Muslim filmmakers who have made movies about UFOs since the 1950s. Pretty much since the beginning of the age of UFOs. We've had other kind of science fiction writers tell stories about these objects. We've had astrobiologists from different parts of the Muslim world trying to understand how life could exist on other planets. And here Muslim astrobiologists have, for instance, been inspired by the extreme environments that the Muslim world includes. So the Muslim world includes some very, very dry places, some very hot places, or also some very, very cold places. So if you take, for instance, the Pamir Mountains in Central Asia, very, very dry, very, very cold. And yet, even in these dry and very, very dry and very, very cold places, life forms, plants do exist. So Muslim astrobiologists have been looking at their own environments sort of to understand possible life in the universe better. So we have scientists, we have artists, we have theologians, all sharing their perspectives, sharing their thoughts and comments on the cultural phenomenon of UFOs. So I would hope that if we find an actual spacecraft from another planet, that again we would have filmmakers and writers and poets and scientists, physicists, engineers, astronomers, and theologians and religious scholars, all sort of collaborating and inspiring one another.
And is there a mode in which you think such people should work in the years ahead? How do you envision the most productive avenue of inquiry in these next few years? Do you think we're sort of doing what we should be doing, or are there adjustments you would make to our academic or cultural pursuits in this area?
Well, ideally, this would be an area where you would have a lot of freedom and a lot of collaboration, a lot of openness, a lot of tolerance for different approaches, different disciplines, and hopefully also an absence of secrecy, where we'll let the filmmakers do what they can do best and produce the most wonderful films that they can make about the UFO phenomenon. We let the poets, the religious scholars, and the scientists all do the best work that they can and sort of be open to what each side has to contribute. And yeah, hopefully the filmmakers will not keep their film secrets. The poets will not keep their poetry secret. The theologians will not sort of write their text in a cryptical manner, and hopefully also the scientists will publish their work. So I would very much hope for openness and transparency and dialogue and mutual appreciation.
We'll double click on your work on the way out, but is there any other material that you would recommend people check out? Movies, poems, books, things that have inspired you in the last few years or as part of your life, like science fiction you'd like to guide people to, or like academic research that you think is especially interesting? Books, movies, whatever.
Yeah. I would definitely encourage people to go beyond Hollywood, for instance, in looking at science fiction movies. A lot of people are drawn to Hollywood because Hollywood often has the biggest budgets, the most impressive special effects, but Hollywood movies don't necessarily always have the profoundest storylines, and
that's very polite.
or they might not be telling the only stories that are worth telling. So I would encourage people to look at science fiction movies from other countries, maybe also countries that didn't have as wealthy of a film industry as the United States. So look at science fiction movies from Mexico or Ghana or India or Egypt or Thailand or Bangladesh or Turkey, and so on. And you would find many of those movies, often sort of decades old. You would find them in full length on YouTube. And even if you don't speak Spanish, even if you don't speak Turkish, because science fiction is sort of a global language, because UFOs are a global icon, you can watch a Turkish movie about UFOs from the 1950s. And even if you don't understand all the dialogue or even none of the dialogue, you would probably still get what the movie is about based on the visual language. So yeah, I would encourage everybody to dive deep into popular culture aside from Hollywood.
That's a great idea. I'm going to do that. Thank you. So I want to highlight for people again your book. If people want to check it out, it's called Islam, Science Fiction and Extraterrestrial Life, The Culture of Astrobiology in the Muslim World. And I also wanted to mention your collection of essays that you edited, or papers or academic work. And I don't remember what that was called. Would you mind sharing the title?
That was Islamic Theology and Extraterrestrial Life.
Okay,
so
great. And I just want to bring the word astrotheology into this conversation because you mentioned it in another podcast, and I thought it was great. And I guess we didn't explore it, but would you like to explore that idea at all on our way out here? Astrotheology?
So astrotheology would be the religious thinking about life in the universe, about our place within the larger cosmos. So just like astrobiologists are looking at the biology of life forms that exist in the universe, also in order to understand our own life better in sort of a cosmic context, astrotheologians would look at religion in the context of the universe, also in order to maybe gain insights into human nature, into sort of our place before God.
That could not be bigger or more exciting. Is there a place where you like people to engage with your work, Matthias? Like, or to follow you online, or to read things you put out?
Yeah, so I appreciate any form of communication. So write me an email. As many academics, you would, I have sort of my email address on my university webpage as well as on other places online. Follow me, connect with me on social media. I'm on LinkedIn, I'm on X, I'm on Instagram, I'm on Facebook. Write a review of any of my books. I would love to hear from you in whatever way you feel comfortable and appropriate.
Oh, that's great. Thank you. Is there anything else you'd like to say about this topic as we say goodbye for today? Is there anything you feel I haven't covered or that is just on your mind that you'd like to share?
Thank you. I'm just grateful to you for interviewing me across the distance, sort of me speaking from Doha, Qatar in the Middle East. And I mean, this is also just testament to how the conversation about UFOs, the extraterrestrial, it's a global conversation. That life in the universe is something that fascinates and intrigues people all around the planet. So I'm grateful to you for your interest in my work and for giving me this platform. I just hope that everybody who's listening to this will also have their own sort of global conversations about that topic. Talk to other people that you come across on the internet in other countries, who are fascinated by the same topics, and continue exploring.
That's a great call to action, and I am very grateful for you sharing your time with me and with us today. I'm honored to have met you, and I admire your work, and I'm so glad we had this lovely conversation. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure.
And that's the show. Hope you enjoyed it. Thank you for listening or watching. If you like WTUFO and you want it to keep existing, support us at patreon.com/WTUFO or on YouTube or on Buzzsprout for as little as you want per month. Patreon or YouTube or Buzzsprout, this show is brought to you by you. So thank you very much for your support. I hope you keep listening, and I hope you have a lovely day.